You can read the same paragraph 3 times and come away understanding it less each time. That isn't tiredness. It also isn't the paragraph. You never fully left the last thing you were doing. Part of your attention stayed behind, and it is still back there, quietly working on something you were certain you had finished with. Focus gets treated like a muscle, something you flex harder when the work gets difficult. It behaves much more like a pan you didn't wash. Whatever you cooked last is still in there. The next thing comes out, tasting faintly of it, and you blame the recipe. So the fix isn't training. It's finding out what you keep leaving in the pan. 5 things mostly, and every one of them feels productive, which is exactly why they survive contact with your judgment. One of them you probably did within the last hour while genuinely believing it was helping you concentrate. That one is the music. Not all music. This is the part that gets misunderstood immediately. Instrumental, ambient, rain sounds, the 8-hour lo-fi loop with the girl studying forever by the window. That stuff has been tested against silence, and it mostly doesn't hurt. Nobody is coming for the rain sounds. The problem is words. When researchers compare silence, instrumental music, and music with lyrics on reading and verbal memory tasks, the lyrics lose consistently. And a review of 65 studies on background sound found that the 2 most disruptive things you can put behind someone who's reading are intelligible speech and lyrical music, which means the song is doing roughly what a person talking in the room would do. You can work through it. You'll just work through it worse. Now here's the part that's actually strange, and it's the reason this point goes first. The disruption depends on whether you understand the lyrics. Songs in your native language interfere more than songs in a language you don't speak. Same volume, same beat, same everything. The difference is comprehension. So the fix isn't silence. The fix is listening to music in a language you have no access to, which is a genuinely ridiculous piece of advice that happens to work. Your favorite band, sung in Finnish, is functionally instrumental. And one more wrinkle, because it explains the argument you're having with this right now. People who habitually study with music are less affected than people who don't. So if you're currently thinking, this doesn't apply to me, I've done it for years, you might be right. You're just less wrong than you think, not unaffected. That's one. Easily the cheapest of the 5 to fix because the fix is worse music, but at least the music happens during the work. The bigger problem arrived before you sat down. Everyone knows the phone is bad for focus. This is the most agreed upon fact in the entire self-improvement genre. Almost nobody thinks about when. This is the thing that has a name. Researchers call it attention residue, and the useful part is knowing when it's worst. It's heaviest when you leave something unfinished, an open loop your brain keeps quietly running in the background while you try to do something else. Now consider what 20 minutes of scrolling actually is. It is 40 unfinished things, an argument you didn't reply to, a video you half-watched, a message you read and left, a thing that annoyed you that you did nothing about. None of it resolved, all of it still faintly running, and then you open a document and ask for full attention from a brain currently managing 40 open browser tabs it didn't tell you about. And none of it is important enough to consciously think about, which is precisely the problem. You can't deliberately close a loop you never noticed opening. It just sits there, costing you something, and the only symptom is that the document in front of you feels heavier than it should. The work isn't harder than it used to be. You're just arriving preloaded. And there's a test for this that's uncomfortable rather than theoretical. Think about a morning when you woke up and for some reason didn't touch your phone for an hour, made coffee, sat there, read something on paper like a Victorian. Focus was fine that day, wasn't it? Suspiciously fine, which means the phone sitting next to you during work is a symptom. You reach for it because the gap already exists. The reaching is the fever, not the infection. That's 2. And the third is better disguised than either of them because it doesn't look like a distraction at all. It looks like preparation. You sit down to work, and before you start, you tidy the desk. Then you reorganize the folder. Then you decide today is finally the day you set up a proper note-taking system. Then you spend 11 minutes selecting a playlist, which, as established, is going to sabotage you anyway, so that's a nice touch. None of this is the work. All of it is task switching, which is the exact thing that leaves residue. And it scales beautifully, which is the dangerous part. A tidy desk takes 4 minutes. A note-taking system takes a Sunday. There are people who have spent longer researching productivity methods than they have ever spent being productive, and they can tell you the difference between 6 of them. It's a footballer doing a warm-up so thorough that he's substituted at halftime. The tell here is a strange one. You feel tired before you've started. Not bored. Tired. You haven't written a word, and you already want a break. That's 3, and at least it happens in the general vicinity of work. The 4th is the one people defend because it's supposed to be the solution. The break. You work for a stretch, your attention gets thin, so you stop, quite reasonably, and the break is 15 minutes of scrolling. Look at what that is, structurally. You stopped one task in the middle. You started 40 tiny ones. You finished none of them. Then you came back and asked for a clean slate. That's not a break. That's the same activity on a smaller screen with worse posture, or, if you prefer, paying off a credit card with a different credit card. Actual rest is embarrassingly boring, walking without headphones, staring out of a window, sitting on the floor doing nothing while feeling vaguely like you're wasting your life. It doesn't feel like anything, which is exactly why nobody does it. The tell. You come back from a break feeling worse than when you left. More scattered, more reluctant, somehow further from the task than before you rested. That's 4. Quick question while we're here, and I'm actually curious about the spread. What's the first thing you do when you take a break? One word. Walk, scroll, eat, or something stranger. Because the 5th one connects directly to it, and it quietly costs the most. You do the easy tasks first. You sit down in your best hours whenever those happen to fall, morning for some people, 11 at night for others. And you clear the small stuff. Reply to the messages. Answer the 3 emails. Tick off the 4-minute jobs because it feels good and it builds momentum and you're warming up. Then, hours later, running on fumes, you finally open the hard thing. Those 4-minute emails could have been handled by an exhausted version of you. They ask almost nothing. The hard task needed the version of you that showed up at the start, and you handed that version a to-do list a schoolchild could have cleared. And the defense is always momentum. Momentum is real. It's also the cheapest thing on this list to manufacture. You can generate it at any hour from almost nothing with one small win. What you can't manufacture is a clean head, and that shows up once. So you traded the thing you can't get back for the thing you can get any time, and you did it before you'd finished your coffee. That's 5, which brings up the obvious objection, and it's a fair one. None of this is what the advice usually says. The standard advice is Pomodoro timers, app blockers, deep work sessions, a cold shower for some reason, website blockers with aggressive names. And they're not stupid. Some genuinely help. But look at when every single one of them operates. During the work session, there's security guards posted at the door of a building that was emptied an hour ago, which is why the app blocker works brilliantly for about 4 days, and then you uninstall it at 11 a.m. with the calm efficiency of someone who has already made peace with the decision. The blocker wasn't weak, it was late. Now look back at all 5. Music with words you understand. The scroll before you started. Set up theater. The break that wasn't won. Easy tasks first. Not one of them happens in the moment you're trying to focus. Every single one happens either before the work or disguised as it, which is the whole thing, and it's slightly annoying once you see it. You've been trying to fix focus at the wrong end of the day. The work session isn't where focus is made. It's only where the bill arrives. So the fix isn't a better timer or a stricter app. It's finishing things before you leave them, so there's nothing still running when you sit down, and treating the hour before work as expensive rather than disposable. In practice, that's smaller than it sounds. Before you stop anything, write one line, where you got to, and what the next move is. That's it. The Residue research found that closing the loop is what releases it, and a sentence on paper counts as closing it. And do that before you leave a task, before you check your phone, and before you take a break. 3 sentences a day, roughly. Not flashy. Nobody's selling a course on close your tabs and be slightly bored beforehand. It just happens to be where it was all going. Now, focus is only the part that gets information in. What decides whether any of it stays is a completely different system, running on completely different habits, and most of those are being wrecked too. That's the next one. 5 habits slowly killing your memory. Because getting focused and then forgetting all of it is an expensive way to waste a morning.